It's Tuesday, the 26th of September 2023. Welcome to the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed, where we give you the top 5 business stories you need to know in just 5 minutes. I'm Michael Thompson, and good morning, Jennifer Duke.
Good morning, Michael.
Jen, 5 stories in 5 minutes. Let's get going. Story number 1, rising petrol prices are causing havoc for inflation, for drivers, and potentially a whole range of businesses, really. Prices surged past $2.20 a litre last week in many capital cities, and unfortunately, there are no signs of easing in sight.
That's right. If you filled up your car in one of the major capital cities over the past few days, you've most likely been a victim of these rising prices. So in fact, Sydney broke a record for regular unleaded last week. The latest NRMA weekly fuel report has Sydney at 220.4 cents a litre for unleaded and 221.4 cents for diesel. And similarly high prices are being seen in Melbourne. And there was about a 9% jump in prices at the pump over August. And that's on the back of oil prices up almost 30% since the end of June. That's due to a global supply crunch.
Now, your day job is, of course, as the economics correspondent for Capital Brief. So you would be looking at how these figures feed into inflation.
Yeah, fuel is a really big input cost for plenty of businesses and households. And we're getting inflation data on Wednesday for August. And markets are currently expecting that headline inflation will be up 5.2% for the year to August. That's a 0.2 percentage point increase compared to the year to July. And Westpac senior economist Justin Smirk is saying that rising fuel prices will be a meaningful positive factor driving up those inflation figures. Now, of course, the Reserve Bank will be looking closely at the data, and the board is due to meet again next week to decide on interest rates. But they're very aware that some of the spike in inflation is due to rising petrol prices, which have been a result of Saudi Arabia and Russia's activities cutting the global supply of oil, and they'll factor that into their decision-making.
Okay, on to story number 2 now. Jen, a really interesting story, this one. Matt Berryman, who founded one of the fastest growing startups in Australia, has lost his 2-year court fight against Google.
So Berryman created the Unlocked business, and it let customers watch ads each time they unlocked their phone in exchange for rewards and discounts off of their bills. And it had really big backers. That included Lachlan Murdoch, but the business came to a halt and went into administration when Google banned its apps from its services. And this was right ahead of a planned $200 million IPO, and it slashed the company's revenue. So Berryman actually then took Google to court in California over claims that its behavior was anti-competitive. But the judge has now sided with the search giant.
Story 3, super fund Hester is going to use its voting power at upcoming AGMs to hit out at overly male-dominated boards.
So the fund has sent letters to chairs and CEOs at almost 300 of the biggest ASX-listed companies that it has a stake in to tell them that it's going to be active at annual general meetings. Now, its big focuses are climate policies and biodiversity loss, as well as gender diversity. So if boards have less than 30% female representation, Hester intends to vote against male directors being elected. And if the executive teams are male-dominated, they'll be voting against the chair. There are still many companies whose boards are entirely male on the ASX, so this could be quite a lot of backlash voting this year.
Story number 4 is potentially a bit of good news, Jen. The Commonwealth Bank thinks that Australians are getting better at picking up on scams.
So CommBank's own prevention detection program has identified and stopped $228 million of scams. And 8 in 10 people, they say, are now more confident in their ability to detect scams. That's according to their customer research, while 3/4 have become more concerned about scams over the last year. And they say this is aligning with their customer loss data. So CBA's internal data from January to June this year shows that customer losses are down 37%. That's compared to the last 6 months of 2022. But they told me they didn't have any available data for the comparative period last year. So we don't really know if there's some seasonality at play there in that data, because it's quite possible that Christmas and the new financial year results in a big spike in scams. But it could be a positive signal that at least maybe banks are getting ahead of the scam activity that's been on the rise for years.
Yeah, let's hope so. All right, last one. Story number 5. Going green, Jen, isn't straightforward, and Lego has now discovered just how hard it can be, because the toy maker was trying to create an oil-free plastic block, but it's had to scrap its plans.
So Lego was trying to get rid of oil-based plastics from all of its super popular bricks, but instead has found that its plan to use recycled bottles would instead lead to greater emissions than its current production. That's because of all the new equipment required. And this is after 2 years of creating a prototype brick using recycled plastic. Now, right now, oil-based plastics are used in 80% of its bricks, that's according to Bloomberg, and it makes billions of new individual blocks a year. And they've tried hundreds of materials and can't find one that makes them more sustainable. So instead, they're now focused on reducing the carbon impact of existing blocks, because at the moment, it takes 2 kilograms of petroleum to make 1 kilogram of plastic. Lego is, though, still aiming to get rid of single-use plastic bags in its packaging.
All right, there we go. The top 5 business stories in 5 minutes. Thank you, Jen.
Thanks, Michael.
It is Tuesday, the 26th of September, 2023. Remember to hit follow on the podcast. And if 5 minutes isn't enough, you can find our longer daily show called Fear and Greed Business News, wherever you listen to podcasts. I'm Michael Thompson, and that was the Fast 5 Business News by Fear and Greed. Have a great day.